We can hear you, but I don't see you yet.
Can you see me now?
There we go. Yes.
And Madam Chair, I also have a court reporter who should be on the line from FIP's court reporting. I don't know if he can let me in.
Okay. We will do that.
Mr. Gibson, what is that person's name?
Her name is Kim Bartholomew from FIPS.
Okay, she's been let into the meeting. Give it just a moment, please.
Great, thank you.
I've unmuted myself. Do you need to see me? Or, I mean, I can hear you.
We can hear you as well.
Okay.
We cannot see you, but we can hear you.
As long as you're up.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. I think that's what's needed. We are here, as I stated, on FEC case number 18-120, Making It Better Tomorrow. Ms. Cunningham, if you would please present the case to the commission.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. In this case, the Commission found probable cause that Making a Better Tomorrow knowingly aided, abetted, or advised a violation of Section 106.143 of the Florida statutes. The complainant alleged that Martin Hyde, a candidate for Sarasota State Commission, was running in a nonpartisan race, but wished to publish a partisan mailer, which was prohibited by the election.
I'm sorry, this is the court reporter. I can't hear you very well. I apologize for interrupting.
No worries. And I'm just going to do a brief introduction before we let Ms. Cunningham go. And we might have you start again because that noise did, I think it was throughout your presentation. So for all of the rest of the commissioners, if you could just put yourself on mute, which I will too as well as soon as I'm done, just so that the feedback is not present. And this is an informal hearing, and the commission is deciding whether the undisputed facts of the case amount to a willful violation in one of the more election laws, and whether there were any mitigating or aggravating circumstances that impact the amount that should be fined. And just so everyone is aware, the commissioners have previously been provided documents in regards to this case. And as I stated before, it's FEC case number 18-120, Making It Better Tomorrow. The complainant is not present, but Mr. Gibson is present to represent Making It Better Tomorrow PC. In this case, the respondent failed to timely dispute the facts set forth in staff recommendation in the commission's order of probable cause. Therefore, without objection, the commission adopts the allegations of fact as set forth in the staff recommendation as findings of facts in this case. And Ms. Cunningham, if you would again present the case to the commission.
Yes. Madam Chair, I just want to clarify. I know that the only party speaking is a respondent. Typically, when we have the meetings in person, the complainants are in the audience. I believe in this case, we do have a complainant and or complainant's representative as attendees. Not panelists, but as attendees.
and so the record is clear, the complainant is present as an attendee. Normally we do have them in person, so it is difficult in this situation to note everyone who's present, but yes, we do have a complainant present, so I will correct that for the record. Ms. Cunningham?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. In this case, the Commission found probable cause that Making a Better Tomorrow knowingly aided, abetted, or advised a violation of Section 106.143(3). Complainant alleged that Martin Hyde, a candidate for Sarasota City Commission, was running in a nonpartisan race but wanted to publish a partisan mailer, which is prohibited by the election code. Therefore, he made an expenditure which was earmarked to ultimately be given to the Republican Party of Sarasota, which would use those funds to publish the mailer on his behalf. To effect the plan, Mr. Hyde gave a $4,000 contribution to Making a Better Tomorrow, a political committee controlled by Eric Robinson. Thereafter, an ECO named Legal Reform Now Committee, which is also controlled by Mr. Robinson, gave a $4,000 contribution to the Republican Party. After receiving the funds, the party purchased partisan mailers supporting Mr. Hyde. Martin Hyde appeared on a radio talk show and spoke about this issue. When Mr. Hyde was asked why he donated money to the respondent, he stated, "There's a very simple answer to that. I didn't want to take the money out of my campaign and give it to the Republican Party directly. This moving stuff around and switching stuff from one PAC to another PAC. That $4,000 went to a mailer that was sent from the GOP supporting me, period. It is a nonpartisan race, and as it relates to coming from my campaign can't directly send something out notifying me as a Republican. So it was suggested that the Republican Party didn't have the resources to fund a city mailer, so I sent the money to a PAC, and it came to this, simple as that. It was a mechanism to get money to the GOP. I didn't write a check direct out of my campaign to the GOP. All I'm telling you is that is what was suggested, and that is what I did." Bank records show that Martin Hyde wrote a personal check for $4,000 to respondent, and that Mr. Robinson's ECO wrote a $4,000 check to the Republican Party just days later. Thereafter, the party wrote a check for a little over $3,300 to Andrick and Associates to publish a mailer supporting Mr. Hyde. The checks from the ECO to the party and from the party to the vendor were both signed by Mr. Robinson, who is also the chair and treasurer for the respondent in this matter. During that same time, the Republican Party also published a letter setting forth its goals for the year and soliciting donations. The party paid less than $1,000 for that letter. 12 days before receiving the $4,000 contribution from the ECO, the party only had about $10,000 in its bank account. Eric Robinson is the chairperson and treasurer for Respondent. He's also the former chairperson and treasurer for the ECO. He's the treasurer for the Republican Party and previously the chair. He's the chairperson for 26 active political committees and former chairperson of 37 political committees, ECOs, and committees of continuous existence. Respondent knowingly aided, abetted, or advised a violation of the Florida Election Code. Martin Hyde publicly admitted that he gave $4,000 to respondent so that the funds would ultimately be given to the Republican Party for the purpose of producing a partisan mailer supporting his candidacy. He stated that he did what was suggested to him so that as he could not publish that mailer himself. Eric Robinson controls 26 active political committees, including Making a Better Tomorrow and the ECO at issue, as well as being the treasurer for the Republican Party. Mr. Hyde gave $4,000 to a political committee controlled by Eric Robinson. Mr. Robinson then had one of his many political entities he controls give a $4,000 contribution to the party. Eric Robinson signed the check from the ECO to the party and from the party to the vendor for those mailers. Mr. Hyde's check to respondent and the ECO's check to the party were issued within days of each other. Immediately prior to publishing the mailer, the party only had about $10,000 in its account, but after receiving that $4,000 donation, it determined that it would spend about $3,300 to support one candidate in one local race. Staff is recommending that the Commission find one violation of Section 104.091(1). Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Mr. Gibson, you have 5 minutes. Oh. It appears that Mr. Gibson is muted. Let's see. Megan, I'm not sure if he needs to be unmuted or if he needs to unmute himself.
It appears that he is unmuted from our end.
No, we can't hear you, Mr. Gibson.
Commissioner Stern, can you hear me? And Mr. Gibson, you can hear me as well? Just give me one moment. Let me see if I can figure it out. It does not show that you're muted on our end. So let me figure that out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It was a background issue. It's corrected now. I apologize.
Okay, great. Madam Chair, if I might begin, and for the record, again, my name is Ben Gibson of the law firm Schutz & Bowen, here on behalf of the respondent, the political committee Making a Better Tomorrow. 2 of the 3 counts in this complaint have already been dismissed because of no probable cause. And as Ms. Cunningham laid out, only 1 count remains against Making a Better Tomorrow. And the facts in this matter, as laid out in the staff recommendation, as this is an informal hearing, are undisputed. And the only facts that apply to the named respondent political committee is that the political committee Making a Better Tomorrow accepted a $4,000 contribution from Martin Hyde. Martin Hyde, as was laid out, was running for the nonpartisan office of Sarasota City Commission. This was a legal contribution from Mr. Hyde to the respondent, and it was lawfully reported. And there's no other facts in the record that pertain specifically to the actions of respondent. So there could be no violation by the respondent here. This isn't there were some other complaints that were filed against Legal Reform Now, the Republican Party of Sarasota, and I believe Mr. Hyde as well. Those have all either been dismissed or settled. Second, in order to prove a violation of Section 104.0911, the commission has to determine that the respondent here, which is the political committee, was the one aiding, abetting, or advising in the violation of the code. And there's just the undisputed facts do not support this conclusion. It's undisputed that there's no evidence that the respondent or its chair or treasurer suggested to the candidate for nonpartisan office that he make a contribution. It's undisputed that there's no evidence that the $4,000 expenditure made by another organization to the Republican Party of Sarasota originated from the respondent, and respondent has denied that as well. There's nothing in the undisputed record that shows any violation of 104.091 by the respondent. and therefore this complaint should be dismissed. And it's also important to note that in order to prove a violation of 104.0911, you would have to determine that the mailer that was sent out actually violated 106.143 sub 3. And the undisputed facts show that this is not the case either. A couple of points on the mailer. The first thing is the mailer was sent out by the Republican Party of Sarasota. Section 106.1433 applies to political advertisements by candidates for nonpartisan office. There's nothing in the record that shows that the mailer was sent out by the candidate for nonpartisan office, or even that he coordinated with the Republican Party of Sarasota. And even if the candidate had sent the mailer out, the undisputed facts still do not support a violation. I know that Mr. Hyde believes that he could not have sent this out from his own campaign, but if you actually look at the mailer on its face, the mailer does not state his party affiliation, which would be prohibited by the statute. It does not campaign based on Mr. Hyde's party affiliation. It doesn't say vote for Republican Martin Hyde, because the statute would prohibit that. What it does is it permissibly says the Republican Party of Sarasota supports Martin Hyde, which is permitted. It's permitted under the statute and under Division of Election Advisory Opinion 03-02. It also gives some other reasons to vote for Martin Hyde that are not partisan. The fact that he's a small business owner, he'll lower your taxes, ensure smart growth. So as a matter of law, to find that the respondent willfully violated 104.0911, you would have to show that there was a violation of 106.1433. So in essence, the commission would have to interpret 106.1433 to prohibit a political party from supporting or endorsing any candidate for nonpartisan office, even if that party did so without referencing the candidate's political affiliation. And a plain reading of the statute just simply does not warrant this interpretation. It would also be contrary to the guidance given in Division of Elections Advisory Opinion 03-02. And of course, this commission knows that it's required by law to adhere to advisory opinions of the division. In that opinion, the division said it's permissible under the election code for candidates for nonpartisan office to accept contributions from a political party. It's permissible for them to be endorsed by a political party. And it's also permissible for a political party to endorse nonpartisan candidates themselves, even to make 3-pack expenditures on behalf of nonpartisan candidates, including mailers, and to do so in complete coordination with the candidate. The one caveat is that those political advertisements cannot state the candidate's party affiliation or publicly represent the candidate as a member of any party. And none of that happened here. So based on all of this, as a matter of law, we asked the commission to find that there was no violation of Section 104.0911 by the respondent and to dismiss this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Anything from the commission? I do have a question for Ms. Cunningham regarding Mr. Gibson's comment and what evidence there is to establish that there was a violation of 106.1433.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair. The theory the commission is proceeding under is that not that the Republican Party is the underlying violator, but that Martin Hyde is. You can see in the complaint, there's a transcript of which I read a portion into the record of Martin Hyde's intent. And his intent was to campaign based on party affiliation. He understood that he was a nonpartisan candidate, and he was looking to skirt the election code. And so to do that, he made a contribution to a PAC, knowing that that money would be shifted to another PAC and ultimately make its way to the Republican Party. Because what Mr. Hyde wanted was a mailer that has his name on it and has the word Republican on it. So the person at issue would be the underlying violator with regard to 106.143(3) would be Martin Hyde, and you can see that intent right in his words in that transcript that's attached to the complaint. And so based on that, the political committee, in accepting that contribution, is aiding and abetting Martin Hyde to make his plan a reality. And the fact that the political committee is controlled by Eric Robinson, who also controls the Republican Party, and another former ECO, and you can see that $4,000 is coming from the candidate to the PC and then from his other ECO to the party, all within days of each other. you can see that Martin Hyde made that contribution so that it could actually make its way to the Republican Party, and it did.
But there was nothing on the mailer itself that denoted that he was a member of the Republican Party.
So the mailer is on page 97 and 98 of your materials. The mailer says the Republican Party of Sarasota supports Martin Hyde, vote for Martin Hyde, join the Republican Party in supporting Martin Hyde. So it does not say Martin Hyde is a Republican. However, I think Mr. Hyde's intent was to get a mailer sent from the Republican Party that has the word Republican on it, along with his name. Not necessarily to say the words Martin Hyde is a Republican. I think it's enough that he recognizes the nonpartisan race. He wants something on a mailer that has the word Republican, and that's what he got when he sent the $4,000 to the political committee.
I have a question. Hypothetically speaking, if Mr. Hyde had been the former chair of the Sarasota Republican Party, and he was putting out campaign materials, would he have been permitted to say, in his background and experience, I'm a small business owner, I'm the former chair of the Republican Party, I'm endorsed by this group, I'm endorsed by that group. Would he have been able to have the word Republican in the capacity of I'm former chair?
Yes, he can state past political experience and use the word Republican in that way. I don't know if he had that experience, which is why he did not do so on his own, but you can use past political experience if you're a chair of the committee or executive committee or party. You can use that on a mailer. That is permissible.
And then as a nonpartisan candidate, let's just say that the local Sarasota Republican Party was having their Lincoln Day Gala or whatever they call it. Could he, as a nonpartisan candidate, put an advertisement in like a booklet congratulating them on however many years of experience?
I would believe so.
Okay. So that would be okay. But because he gave money to a committee, which then gave money to another committee, which then gave money to the Republican Party, and then they turn around and endorse him, which we all know an endorsement from the party itself to them is permissible. That's why we're saying that there's an issue, because of the funneling the money. Even though the Republican Party on their own could have put out a piece, they could have done a palm card, they could have done anything under the sun on election day and sit outside with signs at the polls saying Republican Party says vote for this person.
That's correct. I think you just have to look at the fact, Martin Hyde's intent, the fact that he paid money to the PAC, look at the bank account of the Republican Party at the time that they're spending $3,300 to endorse one candidate in a local race. You need to take all those factors together.
Any further questions by the commissioners for Mr. Gibson or Ms. Cunningham? And Mr. Gibson, I don't know if you wanted to address anything.
Yeah, if I could have a moment just to address Ms. Cunningham's argument. First off, regardless of what Mr. Hyde's intent was, I think you have to look at what actually went out from the Republican Party of Sarasota. And that was a mailer that was lawful in every aspect of the statute. So to say that making it better tomorrow, and by the way, the record shows clearly, this is undisputed, that there's no record that making it better tomorrow, which is the only party here that we're talking about, funneled any money to Legal Reform Now Committee, but that there was any communication at all. This is all just sort of assumed here. There's nothing in the record, in the factual record, that shows this. But even if there was, the mailer that went out was lawful. It did not state Mr. Hyde's party affiliation. And to find a violation of Code 0911, you have to state that they aided and abetted in a violation of the code, and we simply just don't have a violation of the code here.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Anything from any of the commissioners? Any questions for Mr. Gibson or Ms. Cunningham, or any discussion?
Ms. Cunningham, I have a question. If we find there is a violation, does that then necessarily implicate the other entities that were involved here?
You would only be finding a violation with regard to the named respondent in this case. I suppose it would be based on the assumption that a violation did take place with regard to Martin Hyde. There was a companion case that has already been settled with regard to Mr. Hyde and some of the other parties in this matter. So you would just be making a decision and finding a violation as to the party at interest here.
Any further questions or comments from the commissioners? And in this case, the commission is making a determination to determine whether or not the respondent violated section 104.091 of the Florida statutes.
Madam Vice Chair,
Yes.
in case number 18120, I would move that the commission find there was no violation of Florida Statute 104.091.1.
Just give a second. Commissioner Stern, is that a second?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's been moved and properly seconded that in case number FEC 18-120, that we find that the respondent did not violate any of the Florida election laws as alleged in the order of probable cause. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. I don't think we heard from Commissioner Hayes or Commissioner Curry-Smith.
I just said I may have gone
Okay.
at the same time as someone else.
Commissioner Curry-Smith and Commissioner Hayes.
Well, I'm gonna vote nay, but
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because we didn't hear. So we have one.
Commissioner Holler is back too.
Right, but I don't think she heard the entire hearing. So just for clarity of the record, I don't think we will have her vote in this particular case.
Right. I don't even know which case number it is, so.
Correct. So we have one nay. So the motion carries. An order reflecting the commission's decision will be sent to all appropriate parties in approximately 15 days. I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Gibson.
Thank you, commissioners.
And thank you, Mr. Lippman.
Cunningham.
Give it, Ms.